Hello, everybody. Before we get into more substantial chats, we've got the usual housekeeping things to mention. So here we are in Birnam Arts. Oh, there's a re-recording. There's a recording coming back. We just need to kill the volume. How's that? Good? That was a surreal moment. I was talking to myself, as usual. Anyway, this is our space here today in this hall. The quiet room upstairs is also for our use, the upstairs meeting room, and the mezzanine where you were having coffee and chatting. And lunch is going to be served up there too, as you'll see on your programme, and cake, of course. The rest of the space here in Birnam Arts, or as we call it locally, the Birnam Institute, is also still being used for community use. Hello? You got me, Alistair? There we go. Still being used for community use, so let's be mindful of that and allow all that to continue. People will be coming and going and staring at you and saying, what's going on in there? And that's as usual. So I want to do a couple of things. I want to take a moment to introduce Rosie, who's over here. And Rosie's going to be illustrating our stories in our chat today, and she's going to be holding a session to share an opportunity for us all to learn how to do this ourselves. So do take the opportunity to chat with Rosie. We want your stories to be shared, and she'll be capturing these. There's also a film crew floating around who'll want to talk to you as well, and you'll want to share your stories with them, as will Lewis, our photographer, who's available to take pictures of you, because we want you to share your experience here on social media and share it with your own networks, what you've been doing here and what's going on, so that your stories and pictures are in circulation. Hashtag Climate Café if you're sharing on social media. There's also a live feed on our website happening. You might want to let your networks know that they can watch that on the Climate Café website under the events section. So the next thing in my little housekeeping list before I sort of go into my own comments is just to really take a moment to welcome our Climate Café coordinators, or soon-to-be coordinators. You'll have lots of chances to chat with them in our coffee breaks, etc. But can you just maybe, Jackie and others, put your hands up and give us a wee wave so we can see who you all are. If you've not met each other, these are folks you want to talk to. So that's kind of the housekeeping. Oh, there is another announcement I want to say. The gentleman sitting in the tartan chair, you don't get a door prize. That's one of you sitting in a chair with a tartan cover on it, and there isn't a special door prize that comes with that. Sorry, I know it looks like it was a special chair to go to. We should have thought of that ahead of time. Anyway, so housekeeping having been taken care of, now it's the nice personal bit where I get to personally extend my welcome to Birnam Arts here in the heart of Highland Perthshire on the banks of the beautiful River Tay. I'm Fiona Ritchie. I'm the chair of our Climate Café KIC, who host the Climate Café network, and I'm a long-time resident of Birnam here. So I'm welcoming you here personally with pleasure and with a great deal of pride as we're gathering in the very building where the first Climate Café was held back in 2015. And from that simple act of gathering to connect and to chat and then act, a global movement was born, and remarkable things have happened in many of your communities and right here. So we're going to hear a lot more about that and celebrate it today as we more formally welcome and involve our Climate Café coordinators and learn about your work and the initiatives as we go on today. So we're also going to be hearing a global perspective. We'll have a chance to meet and hear directly from Ken Nelson. I don't know if Ken is with us yet, but Ken Nelson from Asheville, North Carolina. Asheville happens to be the twin community sister city of Dunkeld and Birnam, and it's home to a recently founded and very busy Climate Café. So we'll be thanking Ken for joining us as we go along as well, and we'll learn more about why Asheville is special as a place for climate science and more about Ken's work as well. So this is a moment of real significance, having you all here. You've played an important role in bringing us to this very moment, this day of collaboration and connection. There's a saying which I believe originated as a Chinese curse, and that saying is, "May you live in interesting times." Well, like it or not, we certainly do. Yesterday, the Scottish Government announced that they're abandoning their target to cut carbon emissions by 75% by the year 2030. So these are times of uncertainty. You could call them interesting. But they're also times of great creativity and activity, because we know that if we are going to continue to work towards meeting zero emissions target by 2045, that what we do in our communities, it will be by engaging with our communities that target is eventually reached. It's what we do in the communities that really matter. It doesn't come from the top down, okay? So this is going to be a decisive decade by bringing people together to hashtag drink, chat and act on climate. We can and we will make a difference in our communities, and it rolls out from there, as we've seen globally from right here. So don't be dragged down, please, by yesterday's announcement or the stories that you get fed on your devices, because optimism really helps. So does your impact as you map out your own route to reducing your carbon footprint through your networks and your conversations. Think about how you touch power through your job, your pension, the roles you hold on boards, the choices you make at the ballot box. Keep having those conversations in your climate cafes. So today we want you to be energised and inspired. We want you to build new alliances, strengthen the connections you already have with your networks, and above all, we really want our coordinators to feel supported and celebrated today. And really, I'm celebrating also the local impact that you're having at this pivotal moment, and the national and international engagement that's triggered. Well, as we all know, the climate justice message has been very much led by women and by young people who have spoken so clearly and who've called out governments for their inadequate levels of action. For them, the young people, the climate crisis is the priority it must be. So, representing many here in your communities, I want to bring up one young climate activist onto the stage, and she'll take us back to the build-up to 2015 and the UN Climate Change Conference in Paris, and she'll tell you about a special, talismanic, timeless and community project right here in Birnam. So would you please welcome Ruby? Thank you. And it was lovely to hear also that the timelessness of the Bunting is such that it was extended for COP26. So goodness knows how long this Bunting will end up being in years to come. So I failed on my job to give you all the housekeeping announcements. So I'm going to quickly jump in and mention to you, first of all, that our support team are all here. You've seen them outside at the desk and around. So if you've got any questions about the facility or anything about any needs while you're here in the village, please reach out to them. But also, importantly, there is no fire alarm planned for today. So if the fire alarm does go off, it's not a drill, and you will exit the doors down in that direction, go out to the Beatrix Potter Garden. I should have told you that. And also, did I mention where the toilets are? You'll have found them just round the back of the cafe, and there's a disabled toilet accessible via a lift that will take you upstairs, and we can help you with any of that. So that was important. But I was so excited, I raced ahead with my other welcoming comments. So we're just so fortunate in this community to have that rare thing, a visionary leader with rolled up sleeves. Fantastic. After training with the Climate Reality Project in 2013, she founded Climate Café here back in 2015. And she was answering a need that she saw to meet a concern, and created space for conversation and action. Next year, it'll be the 10th anniversary of that first gathering here, right here in Birnam Arts, of the very first Climate Café. Last year, BBC 100 Women named Jess as a climate pioneer, which was a deserved personal accolade, but it had the benefit of raising the profile of all of our work and expanding our global networks. And we have a very important opportunity while she's on that list this year to keep doing that. So I want to bring her on stage to give us a Climate Café network update. Will you please give a very warm welcome to Jess Pepper?
Wow, thank you. I hadn't appreciated quite how moving it would be to see you all together, knowing what wonderful work you're all doing in your communities, and then hear that from Ruby as well, because as all of you know, she's my inspiration along with our brother who get up and carry on being positive, including this week with the Cabinet Secretary, despite being the kids who sat outside Parliament in 2019 and created the political space for those targets to be raised and to be so ambitious. To hear them being rolled back is quite a blow. So anyway, we had a really positive chat with the Cabinet Secretary this week, and we were really glad to meet her and glad to hear her understanding that climate leadership from communities has to be at the heart of what we are all doing. And she was inspired and showed her admiration and appreciation to everybody who is here for everything which you're doing in your own Climate Café and with your Climate Café connections, whether that's being supportive or being a friend or being an ally. And we are really grateful. It is through her persistence, along with the support of John Swinney, that has allowed us to have some funding this year. And what I'm looking forward to sharing with you is what we've been able to do with that funding. And I really hope that you're all going to feel the benefits of that extra support for all your efforts. Thanks to Fiona, who's been just a remarkable chair, and to our board, who are hugely supportive. And I have just, as you all know, the wildest roller coaster of ideas and trying to pull all of this together. And they're there and hugely supportive. And even turning the administration of the funding around has been a huge task, but we've managed to do it. I do want to just pause in this moment, though, and acknowledge that we're all here for the first time. This is the biggest gathering of Climate Café coordinators ever. I think we should have 18 coordinators from Climate Cafés, either existing for many years or new and upcoming, and welcome. We're here to support you, and I hope you make really good new connections today. But also from around the world, whether in our lifetime right now, some people won't have got up yet, so it may be later in the day, by recording as well when they get a chance to catch up, because every single person is adding this to their already busy lives and creating spaces where people feel welcome and included and are safe to just have a chat and think about how we might act. And that might inform individual action, as we know, or it might inspire bigger projects, and we'll explore more of that today. But in this moment, just where we are, and I'm going to reflect back on the climate strike. I don't know if many of you remember that image, but that's two kids sitting outside the Scottish Parliament on cold concrete in January 2019 because they wanted to sit alongside Greta and all the other children who were showing their concern and shouting for action now right around the world. And I know that in climate cafes and communities there was that intergenerational support for everything that they were doing, and also the learning from the adults as to why the children and the young people who are leading this movement were doing just that. There they are, sitting with three very friendly but quite intimidating policemen with big guns outside the Parliament. And that's in Scotland. And it was really, really cold, because I did a lot of standing about with the sandwiches and with a couple of other mums. And that was in January, but here's the power of that moment. That's in September, when 20,000 others joined in. And I'm never going to forget the faces of some of those who've been in the climate movement for decades, when they saw, as they came around the corner, all those who had gathered to raise their voices. And this is just in Edinburgh, but it's testament to the fact that just raising one voice and one story and one connection can then generate movement, and not only generate action, but create space, political space, to enable others to move, to enable the politicians to go for 75% by 2030, and to have that ambition and to know that there is a community behind them. The fact there wasn't a plan to follow up that commitment is not within the children's. That's for us others to think about why there wasn't a plan and why they weren't held to ensuring that there was a plan that would deliver, which absolutely could have been possible. I remember every sector saying we can offer more, and that not being heard and seized upon in that moment. And that's a mistake that's been made, but that we will learn from now. But here is the opportunity, and not unlike climate cafes, every single one of these families and friends and is generating another conversation. So we see 20,000 there just in Edinburgh, all those around the world, and all those that generated that space for more action. And in this year, where so many are deciding who their next decision makers and leaders are going to be politically, let's create the space for them to lead from our own communities. So, this sobering moment, in terms of our science, as we see all around us, we're not going to overlook that. And knowing that we are not on the front line, but it is those who've done the least to make the impact, to cause the effects of climate change that are suffering the worst impacts. And some of those communities will be joining us from around the world today. We see you, and we are wanting to share those stories and ensure that we are learning and hearing what is going on in your part of the world with our communities. And collectively, we're not just building community in our own local spaces and regionally and nationally, but now we're building that globally and learning from each other. So there's massive potential to get behind change. So, with that, I want to just review quickly what's happened over the last 6 months, because we seldom get this moment to just pause, and our coordinators particularly, but our friends too, we want to look after you today. We want to make sure you're comfortable. We want to make sure you've got plenty tea and coffee and cake, and you feel at home and relaxed in this space with a Climate Café kind of informal vibe. So we hope that you feel nurtured. But also we want to just note what's happening across the collective, because you'll be able to share through the day, I hope, and whether it's in the beautiful illustrations or whether it's in photos or film, your stories from your communities. And I hope these will, as Fiona says, be assets to your own work. But we're just going to have a quick look at what's happened over the last 6 months across the network, and then just a look ahead. And that's really just to set the space for having more chats about what else might be ahead. So, chat and action. I'm going to say pepper this slide with lots of icons from Tom. Just credit to Tom, who is our illustrator and is just remarkable in everything he produces and brings that bright and cheerful and engaging, hopeful vibe to all of our work. We're so grateful for it. So you'll see some more of his new icons, which you will all get for use in your social media as well. So an important moment for us last September. Finally, after juggling Climate Café as a sort of part-time volunteering endeavour around late nights and early mornings and trying to have a proper job, I went full-time Climate Café to try and bring in a bit more stability to support the growing network. But that's not the important part. The important part is that we managed in that time to do an update to this local community who have hosted, supported, nurtured, nourished the whole Climate Café, not just Dunkeld and Birnam, but others and across the movement. And we are always delighted to welcome our guests to this community because, it's a space that we all share. And this initiative has been built by a community and then many more since. So it was really nice. And Mr. Swinney, who is our local constituency MSP, was able to share his thoughts about having watched this movement growing in his constituency, which of course was extremely interesting. And then he continued in October to lead a members' business debate in the chamber, to which some of us were able to attend. There was a whole row of coordinators there, having their work acknowledged in the Scottish Parliament chamber. That was the first members' business debate that Mr. Swinney had had in 17 years, and he chose to profile the work of Climate Café. So we were really honoured by that, but it also generated more understanding and connection and awareness within the Scottish Parliament and across the political parties who all showed their strong support for the work of Climate Cafés here and beyond. It was really wonderful in November to be able to work with the Highlands and Islands Climate Hub, one of the new climate action hubs that is setting up around Scotland, where there's a lovely synergy and that Climate Cafés can be the engine room for chat and thinking about what action we can do. And then when you get started with something, no longer is there a vacuum. In most places, there's now an emerging action hub, and it's really fabulous to have 2 or 3 of those action hubs with us today. That lovely synergy in the Highlands and Islands. I was hearing that when they get a new Climate Café starting, Joan sends a cake. That's the kind of support we're looking for. It's lovely. But without the interference of taking over and directing, it's just that nurturing and supporting communities and taking their own action. We were really excited to have SRUC working with us in curating an event for the Scottish and Rural Islands Parliament, where we were able to show the Highlands and Islands Climate Action film, which was full to the brim of amazing climate action and lots of leadership right across the Highlands and Islands, a lot of it led by women, as you'll probably not be surprised, which was really nice to see, and to bring light to all of those who are doing amazing things in their own communities as well. SRUC supported us with research, and we've produced this very smart-looking policy research document, which is on their website, and we'll be sharing with you on the website too, which just highlights some of the learning which is in that and the support which is needed for our rural communities in doing this climate action, but just also amplifies. And if you haven't seen that film yet, it's just become recently available on the Highlands and Islands Climate Hub website, and I'm sure Alice, if you want to wave, will be able to give you more details on how you might be able to show that in your own community, but it's really inspiring. In end of November into December, the BBC 100 Women thing dropped into my inbox, which was quite overwhelming and incredible. What's wonderful is that hopefully this is a way to shine light and amplify all the women who I know are doing their thing across communities. But it was an incredible honour, and to share a Dropbox with those 100 women around the world is quite something. And I'm really hoping that we'll be able to do some more connecting and amplifying of those incredible women's voices and all those networks, as they are acknowledging too that they work with throughout the rest of this year. So that will take us up to November. One of the outcomes from that was the BBC 100 Women broadcast from COP28. So you may know that out of the 100 women, there were 28 climate pioneers, as Fiona has mentioned, who were acknowledged. And as part of that, the BBC 100 Women team did a short feature, which is on our website and is shared on the BBC World Facebook pages, where they connected up between Dubai while COP28 was running and broadcast from Nairobi some interviews and some insights from some of those 28 women. In that, there is a feature on Climate Café, and what is really wonderful to hear is the impression and thoughts and insights from those women in other parts of the world to what Climate Café can bring to the mix in terms of climate chat and action. So if you haven't seen it already, it's a short watch, but I'm really did want to shout out to the amazing BBC 100 Women team who have just won a global media prize for this documentary. So congratulations to them. What they're doing is really remarkable, and they're really the story behind BBC 100 Women is really quite inspiring and important. So yeah, watch out for those lists. They're really good ways to learn about what's going on. Funding. In January 2024, thanks to the efforts of the members' business debate and the commitment by the Cabinet Secretary, Mary McCallan, and her acknowledgement of what the network is doing, pretty much entirely on buttons until January 2024. We finally were supported with some funding, which was remarkable. And that's allowed us to do finally the guidance, get it all beautifully designed and produced, and you will have that new booklet, a startup guide, and all the bits that go with that. It's allowed me to go and engage with a lot of collaboration with the Climate Action Hubs and with others like the Royal Scottish Geographical Society to connect up with communities across Scotland, from Shetland to East Lothian, still to go to Inverclyde, but in Fife, Thurso, all sorts, to be able to talk about Climate Café and share community learning, not workshops or masterclasses, just sharing ideas and learning that we've had as a collective since 2015. It's allowed us to produce support materials. Now, it seems a bit daft for some to hear that actually a template for a poster or a media release or a programme will now be available for each Climate Café in their own folder, but I know how important that is and how much time that can save for people, and also how it adds up to that feeling of being connected and being part of a wider family who are all there to support each other. So you will be seeing that dropping into your inboxes along with your bespoke logos and materials. We also are producing resources, so you will see in the next few weeks the resources going online, which signpost you if there are topics that come up in your Climate Café to credible, strong material that you can use in your own conversations, that you can signpost people in your Climate Cafés to. And that's the start of building resources, and with more collaborations, potentially packs, which will help you in your own cafe chats as well. It's allowed us to have the space to do more strategic work and to gather and share some of the evidence and some of the learning that we have had, which has been huge and is really beneficial to lots of others to be able to share. And some of that is here today, and some of the case studies which Climate Cafés have shared with us to make them beautiful and to show what people are achieving. You'll see just some examples, just a glimpse of what is going on in terms of action across Climate Cafés from that. And also it's enabled us to start and support not us to start, but to support communities to start up their own climate cafes as well, and that's really exciting to see. So it's great to see some folk along to here today, and increasingly we'll see the network calls that we do monthly growing in size as well. You might recognise this man, Mr. Gore, who gave us an endorsement in London. This is a collaboration that we did with the Climate Reality Project, and in London and with the University College London, where there was a cafe for 500 people, which sadly I had to miss due to COVID, but there was enough of our team who, like Bill in Glasgow, had all worked together as part of the COP26 initiative, and they were able to deliver a brilliant climate cafe for all those who gathered across staff, students, other stakeholders and others who were interested. That remarkable event at University College London. But quite a moment to be acknowledged by Al Gore for all of the work that is being done in all of that space and how valued that space is. And now that's become, climate cafes are now part of the toolkit for climate reality and just have been introduced at their New York training last week. We had our network gathering in Perth and Kinross, and this is the first network gathering properly bringing together. We're going to have soon about 13 climate cafes across Perth and Kinross. The latest has been Ochterada and Aberystwyth, and it's lovely to welcome everybody. Unfortunately, Anne, she's the new coordinator there, couldn't join us today, but we'll see plenty more of her soon. This was a day to connect, meet each other, get to know what was happening in each other's communities, have that space, have that time, and like today, sort of nourish the chat and the connections and build those relationships. So we also got lots of lovely photos with our mugs in this wonderful setting, which has been continually supportive of Climate Café as well at Burmiston. And if you haven't been there, it's a real inspiration to everything sustainable. But that was a wonderful gathering, and this again, thanks to that support from Scottish Government. The map is growing. We've had a couple of glitches, and it's not completely there yet, so North America is still looking a bit light. We've got more to add in there, and the UK is just a sea of cafes. And we've just had our first inquiry from the Middle East as well in the last couple of days. So this is continually being updated almost daily at this moment, and some of these are inquiries, some of these have been there for a long time. It was delightful to hear from Peter in Climate Café Ulu, which is the one nearest the Arctic Circle, that he's doing a TED Talk on his experience of Climate Café, which was really inspiring to hear about as well. Just a glimpse of the materials. You'll find them around here today, so please have a look, see what you like. If you need more of them, let us know, and we would be glad to support you with distributing those and art files and allowing you to make use of those in your own community spaces. Hopefully these are all going to be useful resources. And then surreal from Thurso and Elgin straight to Paris to the Change Now Summit, which is a global summit for solutions, where we were invited to speak and then be part of an exhibition. We were chosen, there were 1,000 solutions being exhibited in booths across this amazing venue right outside the Eiffel Tower. We were selected as one of 30 Seeds of Change with a real prime slot, and our team, which included Ruby and Dougie, spoke to hundreds, if not thousands of people over those few days, just connecting, collaborating Also learning about new ideas and solutions which other climate cafes will be interested in, so I look forward to sharing more of that. And those people will be happy to join some of our network calls to be able to share their insights and inspiration as well. And I'm delighted to say that you'll probably be hearing more about Climate Café in Paris soon. Probably not just one, but a few. But there's one very exciting project that's moving quite quickly. So that's all really exciting. But the appetite, the interest and the enthusiasm for the Climate Café space, the simplicity of the model, was of huge interest to so many. So we've got a massive amount of connections that we want to pick up on with positive collaborations right around the world. Climate Café Singapore too, watch out for that coming too. So, as I mentioned, Climate Café is now being featured as part of the climate reality training. I should let you know that in Rome there will be a climate reality training from June 28th to 30th. That will be a particular focus on South East Europe, but there may be opportunities for others of us across Europe to join that training. I know there's some climate reality leaders here today. Bill and Rachel are here, there they are, and so you might want to talk to them more about that. This is a free training, but it's often a nice way to start a climate cafe by just allowing people to build their own confidence and their knowledge about the science and the impacts and the solutions. So that training is happening in Rome, and then it will go to the Midwest and the US, and there they'll be featuring Climate Cafe as part of the toolkit for those newly trained leaders as well. And this week, as I mentioned, we hosted the Cabinet Secretary visit. Unfortunately, her last visit was cancelled due to a red weather alert because of extreme weather, which was kind of apt. So it was really great that she made the effort to come and see us again, and we had a really positive conversation about the potential collaborations both in Scotland and internationally with Climate Café as well. So we'll be excited to follow that up. So what's coming up? We will continue over this year. Our strategy includes supporting and connecting climate cafes, of course, continuing to support new starts, more sharing sessions, networking sessions, guidance, building on the toolkit, focus on regional networking as regional collectives emerge. Often you see the climate cafes emerge as clusters, as Oughterard and Aberystwyth were inspired by Marie Claire and Crieff, and who were inspired by Aberfeldy, were inspired by Pitlochry. So you start to see the clusters in different parts of the world. And the new resources and information, all of that I've mentioned, but there'll be new stuff for you to download and share. And as always, we continue as a board and in running the Climate Café Hub to learn, hear what's happening across your climate cafe so that we can support you and connect you and bring in the best resources that are going to be useful. What's next this year? We'll hear a wee bit more about the schools programme, and also campus programme will be coming this year, and we're looking at a workplace programme. So we've got some connections out there already to look at how we can support people to have Climate Café in the workplace, and you'd be intrigued by some of the names that are coming in proactively, especially after Paris. So that's maybe another story for another time. Maybe next year we'll be able to update on some of those. So watch out for Climate Café Paris, more regional networking, national and global networking, the climate reality leadership, if anybody wants to know more about that, and it might be something that you're interested in, let us know. The guidance pack, new Climate Café spaces emerging right across Scotland and beyond, and new formats as we explore what the best ways of working are for Climate Café calls. Obviously, one of the challenges but opportunities is that now we're across time zones. Some of you might be amused by the photos you've seen of the clocks that are now up in the Climate Café office to try and keep track of the 4 hours and 45 minutes between Nepal and the difference with Oregon and Auckland, as well as Climate Cafés get started in New Zealand too. So this is going to be entertaining. Bear with us on this journey. But hopefully coordinators, the times will not be so wobbly. We'll continue to learn with that. And in Dunkeld and Birnam Unplugged, we're delighted to have had funding from Perth and Kitross Council through the Green Living Fund, which will support more connection events, not only in this region, but hopefully bringing people from further afield as well. So that brings us hopefully to a nice update. I don't want to give you too much just to whet the appetite for what might be ahead, but it's a blank canvas in many ways, and I look forward to conversations today to hear about what potential collaborations and partnerships there may be. And there's some lovely little surprises and nuggets amongst those who are joining us today, who may be able to share more with you over coffees and cake too. So thanks very much.
Thanks very much, Jess. Such a lot to share, and hopefully it energises you and gets you excited, which is what we want when you're here this time. I want to mention that this milestone moment is been made possible in part by funding from the Scottish Government, and that's been allowed us to bring everyone together to acknowledge and celebrate individual and collective efforts and connect this amazing Climate Café community, the local, the national and the global. If this is, if you need to take a comfort break, this might be a good time to do it because we've got a wee bit of a set change, as they say. Also, just remind you that there are all these wonderful materials that Jess described and showed on screen are available up at the back. Make sure you take away what you need to share with your communities and to inspire others to perhaps start their own Climate Café. Share your stories with Rosie and share your experiences here, your pictures, with your social media networks, hashtag Climate Café, and you can use the Climate Café mugs as a wee prop for some of that if you'd like to. And remember, there is a live feed of today's event going out on our website, streaming at Climate Café under the events drop-down menu. Well, I want to say that the strength of the Climate Café movement obviously lies with the individual cafes, your own identities, your initiatives, your projects emerging from your chats and how they develop in their own creative ways through your conversations is everything to this movement. So it's going to be our time now to hear from some of our local Climate Café coordinators who can share their ideas and learning. And thanks again for being with us and making this event everything that it's turning out to be already. I'll hand you back to Jess, and I think we're going to encourage some of you to join us on stage. Yeah, fill your coffee, have another pastry, have a wee comfort break if you want, and chat with Rosie, but we'll be moving things along fairly briskly. Thank you.
Okay, I hope anybody joining us on live feeds had a chance to get a cup of tea as well, and there's a water station here for everybody if you want to continue to hydrate through the day. Please make use of that. I'm delighted to be joined by, is this working, Fiona? Yeah. By some of our Climate Café coordinators up here. We were going to just do it down in the body of the Kirk, but we thought it would be better if you can see and hear everybody, and also for us, for our live stream, for everybody to be seen and heard. So, I'm delighted to be joined by Nathan from Climate Café Blairgowrie and Rattray. He's the co-coordinator of Blairgowrie and Rattray Climate Café with Jamie Louise, who's in the audience there, yellow jumper, thank you Jamie Louise, and supported by Len and Kay, give us a wave, who set up Climate Café Blairgowrie and Rattray back in 2016, I think. And also Marie-Claire from Crieff, one of the newer climate cafes, brilliantly established previously by Freya and then handed on to Marie-Claire. And I'm going to just share a bit about why these three cafes have been asked to come and chat. And with Jackie from Climate Café in Dundee, which is hosted by Dundee Rep, and is a very vibrant city cafe, which has brought together lots of interest about climate cafes in Dundee to establish this space. As some of you may have heard me mention before, that one of the things which we've observed about the climate cafes is that sometimes they can start a conversation in a community where there's maybe not much chat and action going on around climate, and that certainly felt the case here in Dunkeld and Birnam. In fact, there was a piece of research done when Climate Café started, and it showed that our climate literacy was really poor in Dunkeld and Birnam, and we weren't really chatting about it, and we weren't really acting much as a community. And now we could estimate that there's maybe 100 people a week taking action on climate, whether that's connecting with nature or remaking or reusing or repairing or sharing food or doing swaps, all sorts of different things. So sometimes it's starting a conversation, sometimes it is sustaining a conversation in a place where there's maybe a thriving project or something happening already, and sometimes it's extending that conversation much wider into the broader community. So those are three themes which we observed a few years ago but seem to be continuing to be the case. And so I invited Nathan and Marie-Claire and Jackie to come because they kind of give a bit of that feel. Every Climate Café is unique because it's led by the community that hosts it. But in each case, I think probably Nathan and Blairgowrie and Rattray Climate Café maybe started a conversation more about climate. That certainly seemed to be the feel at the time. And Marie-Claire, I know that there's a thriving project already at Remake. And Jack, it'd be lovely if you can tell us a bit more about how Climate Café Dundee reaches so many different people in the community. That'd be amazing. Nathan, do you want to share a bit about how your Climate Café started and just a bit about what maybe the priorities are in that community and what action has come out of Climate Café?
Yeah, sure. It was started up by Lenny Kay back in 2016. I believe they were coming to the one here in Dundee and Birnam and thought about why don't we set our own one up because they're travelling over for it each time. I think there was a lot of engagement with it over the years. There's been a lot of kind of projects that have come out from the chats there that have come on being their own things on kind of varying scales. Some of the larger ones being things like the Tayside Woodland Partnership, like Community Forests Initiative, Strathmore Cycle Network, trying to have more cycle paths to connect up rural towns in Strathmore. The HEAP project being a really large, successful one, which you might have heard of and was mentioned by John Swinney on his members debate as well. I think we've helped over 3,000 households now with free impartial energy advice across Perth and Kinross. Various different projects, initiatives. I think the key focus has been the kind of climate side, also kind of plastic waste. We have had lots of talks and want to be doing some more about kind of transport, especially because it's rural transport. Those are the kind of key focuses for us over the years.
Thank you, Nathan. Some massive amount of action has come out of Climate Café, Blairgowrie and Rattray, and lots of folk talk about it. Thank you. Marie-Claire, do you want to share a bit about your setting and space and context?
So, our Climate Café runs at Remake, so Remake Scotland, we're a reuse charity in Crieff, and it was set up in November 2022, and that was by Freya, my predecessor, and Amaury, who's our general manager. And it's really just a space to be able to, have those conversations. We probably haven't had as much action as you guys, it's probably a smaller group, I would say, that we have, but we try and run on the format that we have somebody to come and speak to the group, and then the conversation kind of after that sort of continues, which has been some really interesting conversations. But it's sort of just trying to sort of access make it as inclusive as we can, and access as many sort of different parts of the community as we can to open it up.
So where there was a space for remaking and repairing and reusing stuff, there's now conversations about growing and energy efficiency. I know you had a brilliant energy efficiency session.
Yes. So we've ours is kind of we try and kind of keep it quite sort of local topics, that relate to people. So maybe celebrating people in the community who are doing amazing things, taking action, getting them to come and speak to the group, or rural transport, big topic, heat, energy, that kind of thing. So it's really trying to keep it as relevant to the people that are coming along.
And just something to add, every Climate Café that joins the network brings another contribution of expertise or passion or insights, and so there's going to be more collaborative work across the region of these Climate Cafés on reuse and repair, with an event later in the year led and informed by Climate Café Crieff, which is really great, and Remake. Thanks, Marie-Claire. Jackie, your Climate Café, and
Yeah, we're quite new. We started in August of 2023, so just about 9 months. And the reason we came along was because Dundee Rep and Scottish Dance Theatre, where the cafe is actually held, has a great passion for net zero and climate change and everything like that. So I came up with the idea of why don't we have a cafe for the community, so the community can come along and talk with us and do activities with us to see what contribution we could do to climate change. So we did a wee Google because I remembered there was one in Brockie Ferry, but it's not actually one of Jess's cafes. And we just by chance found the Climate Café website. So I stalked Jess for about 6 months to finally get hold of her to set up the cafe in Dundee. And it's been quite a thriving success, I would like to say. We've got about 85 people on the mailing list, and we average between 25 and 40 people a month. We hold our cafes once a month, purely because it's a lot of work, and it's different people every month that come along and speak as well, so it's quite good.
Are you allowed to share your guest for next month?
No.
You've got a treat in store for next month. But the diversity of topics, I mean, obviously as coordinators, everybody's guided by what people in their cafe want to hear and chat about. The reach of Jackie's Cafe is a buzz, it's a massive buzz. Sometimes there's a swap shop, sometimes there's a creative activity or a quiz, which just highlights how much we have to learn.
Last month, our wardrobe mistress, Kate, brought down a rack of gents' suits, and she said, see if anyone from the Climate Café wants these. So we left them in the foyer by box office, and at the end of the cafe, they were all gone. And it wasn't just the Climate Café people, it was actually delivery men and people coming for tickets and all sorts. They just took them. Hangers were included, so they got a free hanger with it as well. So they were all gone. And the reason for that was because the charity shops had stopped collecting them. They were so overwhelmed with them. So people just took them along, beautiful designer suits and things. So yeah, watch the space. I'll let you know when the next one's coming along.
One of my favourite repurposed jumpers came from Climate Café Dundee
That's
launch.
Right,
yeah.
In our first one, we had a swap shop, but it was more just take rather than swap, and it helps Kate immensely.
Marie-Claire raises a lovely point, which is that celebrating people's stories and what people are doing already in communities, whether that's businesses or children or all sorts of initiatives, is something which is really strong across the Climate Cafes, and it kind of nurtures that sense of the space being just a space for everybody to come into. I know that in Climate Café Blairgowrie, because coordinator Carol was good enough to count it up, that there's about 50 different organisations connect or inform or hear about what's going on in the Climate Café, which is really quite inspiring. And certainly in the pandemic, a lot of people went to the Climate Café spaces to get support for whether it was local food or making things as well. I wondered if there's a particular highlight from your Climate Café experience or something that you're really proud of that you'd like to share from your own cafes. Nathan, do you want to start?
Yeah, I think the largest thing potentially that, maybe the cafe can be proud of is maybe even before Jamie and I's time, when Len and Kay were doing the coordinators, is the Big Place conversation that was took place in 2019. Obviously we weren't there, so I can't really say fully what it involved, but I believe there was around 300 people that came together for a conversation. There's various topics and sessions, a big kind of consultation exercise about what climate action people wanted in Blairgowrie and Rattray, and there was even a kind of a report document put together after that as well, which can then be used as a bit of a kind of action plan afterwards. Maybe that would be one of the large highlights I think we could take from the last 6-7 years.
Great, and of course the heat project, the 3,000 households, 140 renewable devices.
Yeah, so that would be one of the most successful, influential projects that's come out of the Climate Café. It's I believe it started as a conversation. We see the problem with poorly insulated, expensive houses. Why don't we do something about it? Funding was applied for to run a kind of energy advice project. Martin has been the manager on it since 2017. In the last few years it's expanded, so there's 3 advisors now and a marketing engagement person. And yeah, as I say, we've had a lot of reach to reach over 3,000 households with helping them reduce energy costs and have comfortable homes.
Nathan's being modest. He works for the Heat Project and inspires a lot of this action. And it was really exciting for me recently to be able to just coorie in at the back at Kinross, Climate Café, Kinrossshire, where Nathan was giving a presentation as an employee of this organisation which came out of a Climate Café chat, inspiring a packed community library of about 45 people about heat pumps and generating lots of exciting conversations in their homes as well. So that was really quite an inspirational moment for me personally. Thank you. Marie Claire.
Well, it's kind of a hard act to follow. I think probably not quite as impressive as the stuff that you guys are doing. I think kind of on your sort of, your sort of the basic level of just seeing people come in, and what's a real highlight for me is that people are coming in and having that kind of, all right, they're kind of understanding a bit more, and just getting those people coming through the door and kind of gaining that little bit more of education and understanding. And I think it's really important. And that positivity as well is just keeping those little nuggets, keep them moving. So that's kind of on a lower level. And also, for us at Remake, it's really important, that we survive on volunteers, as a lot of organisations do, and we really need them to help keep our reuse charity going. So having people who come along to the Climate Café and then decide that their bit of action, what they're going to do is they're going to volunteer at Remake, well, that's brilliant. It's a lovely way of connecting the two together. So that kind of transition where people are getting sort of people into to volunteer for us as well is brilliant.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. And that people finding that space to connect and know that there are other people in the community who care and want to talk about this and act together. This is huge. Yeah, and we often hear, feedback from people quite soon after that space is established that actually I feel so much better now. I know other people in my community want to do things, and then they make those connections. And often that's outside the Climate Café, and with an awareness of what that chat that can spread across the community as well. So it's really important. And they've been around for years now. So it's all of these bits of ripple which are great. That's good that it's generating more volunteers as well. Yeah, thank you. Jackie, what's your highlight you're most proud of?
It's been a hard one, really. Dundee Rep has got a bit of a reputation now with the Climate Café, because every time they hear my name, they go, "Oh, that's you." And it's now quite well known through the councils and all the other organisations towards climate change. And we do a lot of collaboration with the councils and other groups around Dundee. There's a new group that's just started up recently called Changemakers, and we're going to get involved in that quite heavily as well. But if it was anything specific about the Climate Café is the networking. We have a lady which Jess knows called Jean Kemp. Jean is a lovely lady, but she terrifies me. She's retired, and she heads the Global Justice Dundee section of Global Justice. And on our very first cafe, she was going to come along and put a stall up and be there about global justice. And it's all about the energy treaty that they're fighting at the moment. Anyway, we calmed her down and said, just come along, have a coffee, have a natter, explain to us what it is she's doing. And then the following month, we gave her a platform to talk. From that, she got us all to sign petitions. Everybody did that, and then we got friends and family, everybody else. I mean, this has been a huge thing. And then just recently, they had the announcement that they'd done a U-turn on the energy bill, and it's successful. So that was a great achievement as well, and we feel like we were part of that at Dundee Rep, at the Climate Café.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you ever meet Jean, she is a force to be reckoned with.
And now a great champion of your Climate Café.
She certainly is, and she's now collaborating with another lady who's quite similar called Bridget Cooper, and now they're doing Stop Rosebank. So watch this space.
Watch this space. And then you join that up with all other climate cafes, and yeah, that can shift things. I was noticing some of the observations after the Cabinet Secretary had visited us this week at the Network Hub, that people were saying, well, it's not just about people in their own communities doing things, but I think what you don't necessarily see is the systems change, the political space that this is building, when maybe there might be some bold leadership on tackling climate change now, and maybe one or two people shouting loudly against it now, where you hear hundreds and then thousands of conversations that are supporting that, and that evolving right across the country, and 13 in Perth and Kinross, and then right across Scotland. That is creating that room to do more. We see it with businesses as well, and businesses in that that are supporting that kind of shift, thriving, where they're supported by the cafes as well, hopefully. Great. Yeah, I wondered, are there, sometimes there's a hunch that it's only, the usual suspects get together in a room and they talk about climate, and it's always the same people, and I don't know, is that your experience? Do you reckon that's always the same people, or are there new folk that you're speaking to that actually, are engaging with climate for the first time, or are leading the conversation that people might not have? These are obviously inclusive spaces where everybody's voice is heard rather than just those who normally are heard. But are there examples of conversations that...
I think at Dundee, the majority of people that come along have already got an interest in something to do with climate change, but they're open to listen to other people's stories and things as well. We had recently a lady who was homeless. She was literally sleeping on people's couches. And we lobbied the council, we managed to get her a flat, and we got back into housing again. So that was one of the things that came out of it as well. But yeah, I think everyone's quite open to other people's ideas because it's such a vast topic, and everybody wants to learn something new. So yeah, that's what Dundee's about.
Yeah, one of those sparks of magic, that support for each other, and building of community. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah,
last month it was on passive housing, so that was quite interesting.
Yeah, and bold proposals in Dundee. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Marie-Claire?
I think we try and be as inclusive as we can. We try and spread it out to as many different, groups within the community, but ultimately I think it does come back down to it's the people that are engaged that want to learn. So it does, it's the same groups. I think of people, I don't know if you guys maybe are sort of similar. The high school, it's a slow process. It's coming. We're gradually getting in there and talking to groups within the high school, and I hope that that's maybe filtering out to parents and kind of other groups as well. But I think we probably would. It is the same sort of group of people that we're that are coming to the Climate Café.
As things get moving, yeah.
What I do find it really interesting is, as part of my job is community engagement, and I go out and talk to lots of different groups, and Climate Cafés happen in all these wee little settings, and it's amazing. I can be sitting there going, well, this is a Climate Café. We're all sitting here, we're talking about the environment, whereas we've got a cuppa, it's relaxed and informal, so there's, they're happening, they are happening out there. It's just trying to tap into those kind of groups, and it being relaxed and informal. So it's, so people feel that they can ask all the silly questions and not feel like they're kind of making a mistake or going to look silly or whatever. Yeah,
they're not silly. Yeah. And that's right, the chat can happen anywhere. I know, like COP26, we did the, you don't need a banner, but we had the pop-up banner to do Climate Café pop-ups in the bus station. And I know that's where we met Mary, who started Climate Café Glasgow Quakers, and also has all sorts of exciting things connecting to the primary in Glasgow as well. But people would stop and just have a chat, and there we were having a chat about climate, and that's what we're being encouraged to do by so many, is just start that conversation. So if it's just the easy thing of grabbing a cup of tea and a biscuit and having that chat, that's the thing. Cool, thank you. Nathan?
I think I'd be similar there for Blairgowrie and Rattray. I think sometimes it depends on the topic of interest for different people. So, for instance, we've got a Facebook group that has maybe a range of people on it. We have comments and things on there from other groups like anglers, and then when we have talks, there can be varying interest depending on the topic. So if it's something maybe to do more with agriculture or biodiversity, maybe that draws in other people that wouldn't necessarily be interested in other conversations or climate. But when things are appropriate to that, climate reaches so many different topics. It can be a way in for starting conversations or chatting to people there as well.
Thank you very much. Great. And if somebody said to you, I'm thinking about starting a climate cafe in my community, but I don't know, not sure whether I should get started, do you have any advice or recommendations about, your experience of being a climate cafe host, coordinator?
I think take the plunge. I think it's difficult maybe to initiate something. It's a lot easier to maybe join a group that's already established, but if you're thinking about it, I guess the need's there, and it maybe just needs someone to step into that role, and maybe it might take a bit of work to get it started, but then once you're there and there's a platform, other people will join and help out, and it can become these spaces that are both social and can lead about to so many kind of different actions. It's there to be seized, really. If you're thinking about it, definitely just to ask the question, see what's possible.
We're here to support.
Yeah.
Other climate cafe coordinators have all been there, and so often we hear people saying, well, will people talk? And I think we tend to learn that they do. Marie-Claire, do you have any top tips or advice?
Yeah, pretty much what Nathan said. I think if one person's probably thinking about it, probably other people are thinking about it as well, so it just needs somebody. And, in terms of, so our climate cafe is probably more rural, in a rural setting where there's, not in the big city setting, but a lot of the communities, they rely on volunteers and people just stepping up and going, right, I'm going to do that. And I think that's a really valuable thing to do. And, it's in its sort of relaxed and informal way, but I think that's a really good way of bringing people together. So, yeah, I would be, totally. Well, it's great that Angie has managed to start the Oxford one. That's really good that she's going for.
You've inspired a climate cafe.
Yeah, so it's nice
well done. And it had a brilliant start. Yeah, it's going to be an exciting conversation to watch. Yeah. Jackie?
Don't do it. I couldn't resist, sorry. No, I think it's been a great thing that we've done at Dundee. I would say anyone taking on the idea of a climate cafe, keep it small to begin with and build it up gradually. It does take a lot of work and a lot of effort sometimes. Get a group of like-minded people together and decide together how you want the cafe to run. What we did at Dundee to begin with is we got a whiteboard up and we told everyone to put their ideas of what they wanted to get out of the cafe on the whiteboard, and that's what we've started to do. We're using people's ideas so they feel involved as well, and we're just gradually working through them. In August we're having our 1-year anniversary, so having a wee bit of birthday cake, and we're going to review what we've done in the last year, and then from that we're going to review what we'll do for the following years to come as well. So yeah, just take it small steps, I would say.
It's quite nice, and just through learning over the years, we've recommended now that it's a good idea to think about having 2 or 3 coordinators. Not everybody needs to be as ambitious as Climate Café Dundee, which is the full Climate Café experience, if you ever get a chance to go along. Some people are just creating a space to have a cup of tea and that's it. And others, thank you Nathan for mentioning that some cafes have themes, for those who haven't been in that experience before, it might be about energy, it might be about food stuff, it might be about sustainable fashion. There was a big collaborative event on sustainable fashion recently between a few climate cafes and 2 schools, which was led by the children and young people, which so often is a feature, as we've mentioned already a few times this morning. Just to mention that 2 of your cafes are in workplace settings, and if you haven't been at Dundee, and I certainly wasn't aware at all when I went to the first Climate Café there. There is so much that has been done in terms of sustainability to be inspired by and to learn from. The toilets are remarkable. You need to check out the toilets, and there's a huge story behind them, which Jackie will fill you in on. But we actually heard this a lot in Paris, that people who are in that sustainability role, especially in a big organisation, a big business, might feel quite isolated, and actually being able to share what's going on in that workplace or that business is a huge benefit to them. If it allows them to be heard across the organisation and to also amplify all good work that's being done, but also to increase the learning and the feel good about that within the organisation. And I get a sense of that happening at Climate Café Dundee and Dundee Rep, that the team are involved and excited by it as well.
I am actually head of the environmental group for Dundee Rep and Scottish Dance, hence why this came along. I don't think, because of my job, I could actually do this as a part-time volunteer thing. It's good that it's part of my job. And from that, I'm able to spend time at work organising it and planning it, and it does take sometimes quite a bit of planning. Our group, they come along to the cafe. We've got quite a flexible working environment, so everybody knows when it's happening, and they come along with privilege for the free coffee and the cake. But they come along and join in and listen as well. So next week we are doing a film show called Why Not Scotland? It's a 1-hour show, and I think a lot of the staff will come to attend that, just to get an hour out of the workplace and a wee sit down and listen to that as well. But we do have a really active workforce in environmental things. So yeah, we are quite, a privilege to have these people working with us.
Thanks, Jackie. Did you want to say anything on that sort of workplace theme, Marie-Claire?
Well, I suppose what I would say is it's great because we often have speakers that will come along to talk at the Climate Café. It's great for that idea generation, and quite often we'll all sit in the office. We're really quite a small group, but you get the conversation going, and then it starts to give you ideas about what could we do for the next Climate Café, what's important to people, and quite a busy WhatsApp group that there's always articles being pinged around all over the place, which is also really, really useful for those kind of conversations.
Yeah, so it's keeping that chat going outside the cafe. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Did you want to add anything to that, Nathan?
Well, I guess we do it from a volunteer capacity. So although I guess it's within the capacity that everyone can do even within the workplaces, I think key for us is just trying to have as many people as possible helping kind of organise things and being involved for the sustainability of it. But yeah, it's just been good to have it here over the years, so that people know about it and can engage where they can.
Yeah, and folk do engage in different ways, don't they? Folk have mentioned the Facebook groups, and we're often saying to folk, don't worry if it's a small cafe, because the conversations happen outside in the workplace and the communities, and it kind of builds that. Thank you so much for sharing your stories. This is really these are 3 of I think we've got 18 coordinators with us today from different climate cafes. I hadn't mentioned that already, which is just remarkable. Probably have mentioned it already because it's super exciting. And obviously around the world as well. So we look forward to continuing to have our conversations, mostly via Zoom, so that we can include everybody on them. But lovely to do this in person. Thank you so much for sharing your stories.
That was inspiring, and don't be hesitant at all about thinking of starting a climate cafe. Will people be interested? The percentage of people in the UK now reporting that they are concerned about climate change stands at 80%. So the appetite is out there. You will be pushing at an open door, I'm sure. But I really want to thank you for sharing your ideas and your learning. Thanks, Nathan from Blairgowrie and Rattray, Marie-Claire from Crieff, and Jackie from Dundee. Thank you. And as new cafes emerge, stay connected, particularly with these well-established groups, because they're always eager to share their learning and to support one another. We have lots coming up in the second half. We're going to be looking at the local authority perspective. We'll be talking about connecting with the community, business and workplace perspective. We'll excitingly be talking about the launch of our schools pilot. We're taking a look at the global voices. We have Ken Nelson here from Asheville, North Carolina. We'll be linking up with Nepal. So there's lots to look forward to. But it is time for a wee break and a bite of lunch, which will be served up in the mezzanine where we had coffee earlier on. Want to thank Crieff for the great food and fantastic work they do as a social enterprise. They've provided our catering today. And meet one another, chat, get to know one another, talk to Ken and everybody that's come here to spend the day with us. And we look forward to seeing you again in the second half in an hour's time at 1:30, where the lovely Alistair will announce that the session is about to commence. Thank you very much. See you soon.